I want to give a shout out to Charles Kellis with ADM Security Solutions and Tony Barbieri with Kessler Collins PC. Charles' company is a BOMA Allied member and frequent sponsor of our events. Tony is our BOMA Greater Dallas attorney, and his company provides legal counsel to our association. We appreciate Tony looking out for us and the commercial real estate industry. Most importantly, Charles and Tony's companies paid for breakfast today. Thank you for the breakfast tacos and coffee. We all know I need coffee. Before I introduce our speakers, I would love to invite George Vincent, Vice President of ADM Security Solutions, to come and talk a little bit about ADM.
Thank you. I'll keep it brief. For those of you, I see some familiar faces in the room, but for those of you that don't know us, ADM Security Solutions, headquartered in Bethesda, Maryland. We came to Texas about 3 years ago. We're one of the 10 largest security companies in the country, so big enough to service all your needs, but small enough that we won't return your phone calls. We'll return your phone calls, won't not. One of the things that I think that I'll plug real quick, next week we've got sort of a market report on employment coming out. We just worked with Indeed to look at the security officer industry, some trends. Reach out to Charles. We'll get you on the list to get that off to you. Honored to be sponsoring, especially with such an esteemed panel today. Anytime I get to hear a lawyer like Tony speak and I don't get a bill afterwards is a good day. Thank you guys. Thank you guys, and enjoy the talk.
Thank you, George. And that was a great segue because now, Tony, do you want to tell everyone a little bit about Kessler Collins?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having me over. This is awesome. I'm an attorney with Kessler Collins, as you all know by now. I've been with the firm for 20 plus years. I'm now currently the president of the firm. It's crazy, but I am. My focus is primarily commercial real estate, doing a lot of what you all do. And I think at some point I've probably worked with most all of you in some capacity over the years. So it's a pleasure to be here, and thanks for letting me come talk to you.
Wonderful, thank you.
That's supposed to be the one on she was talking.
As a reminder, while this session is not available virtually, it is being recorded, so you can revisit the information on the BOMA Greater Dallas YouTube channel. If you have questions for the panelists during the presentation, please raise your hand and we will get your question answered. But now let us get the presentation started. Charles and Tony, take it away.
So while Charles is getting that set up, so as you probably all know by now, this constitutional carry law is brand new, just signed into law, goes into effect September 1, and it may come as no surprise to you that the legislator comes through this law together, and it's a little there are a lot of things there that are kind of head scratchers from a drafting perspective, from a legal perspective, like how it's supposed to be interpreted, how it's supposed to work. There are a couple of varying agencies in Texas, DPS, one of them, Charles will probably talk to you about that, who are kind of scratching their head saying, how are we going to enforce this? How's this going to play out? And so what we've done today is, from the knowledge we have now, trying to educate you on how this is going to work and how things are going to change from day to day in your facilities. And I think that's probably where the rubber hits the road for us. But so with that said, we're not, I know when it comes to guns, it's obviously a very politically charged issue. And so we are not here talking about politics. Yeah, this is a neutral thing. So if we say something, it's not coming from a position of I feel one way or the other. It's just it is what it is. So I don't want that. I don't want you guys thinking that. And I think in the past when we've had discussions about this topic, we've said let's try and keep the tenor, just non-political, if you will, just that the facts free. So anyway, aside from that public service announcement, any other housekeeping matters?
No, yeah, other than don't vote like that.
Yeah.
All we're gonna do is present what we should say has been put out by the state. DPS, when I contacted my contacts there and said, hey, how is DPS gonna do this? They said, we're gonna send you to the Attorney General for an opinion, or to Matt Schaefer to talk to you because he wrote it. So DPS has been put in the middle of this and said, you're gonna do, and they're like, how? There's verbiage in the legislation that goes as far as saying, because when you read the bill, the first section of the bill talks about expungement of criminal offense. They're talking about expunging criminal offenses that by law can't be expunged. So everybody, even the county judge here in Dallas is going, how does this work? So there's a lot of give and take that's going to be going on. There'll be probably some litigation later on down the line on it. So what we're trying to do is give you enough information where you can go back, formulate a plan for how you want to deal with it, or how you might deal with it. Just like with 30-6, 30-7, Tony and I do classes on that. As far as I know, we have no blow up on that, right? Yeah. So, okay, so we did well on that. So I'm gonna start to go through the process and this is off the guidelines. Matt Schaefer did a FAQ and he talked about. I already got technical. Sorry about that. There we go. What does House Bill 1927 do? House Bill 1927, also known as the Texas Constitutional Carry Law or the Firearms Carry Act of 2021. What it does is it allows individuals 21 years of age or older who are not otherwise prohibited from possessing a firearm to carry a firearm in non-prohibited places. When they refer to firearm, we're specifically talking about you. Long gun detection has been legal for many years to carry. Unless you call public alarm, there was no harm. In Texas, prior to this, you could even carry now swords, machetes, spears, all sorts of other things as well. So this is just based on handguns and handguns only. This applies to both Texas residents and out-of-state individuals. So anybody coming into the state to visit can now carry a gun. Okay.
As long as they're
As long as they're qualified, they're not prohibited. Who can't carry it? Because not who's prohibited. Person prohibited from possessing a firearm under 18 USC 922, Texas Penal Code 4604. Person's conviction in the past 5 years of misdemeanors, including bodily injury, bodily injury, deadly conduct, terroristic threat, or disorderly conduct, display or discharge of a handgun or the firearm, and the Penal Code 2201, 2205, 2207, 4201. And Tony can speak more to those.
Yeah.
Those as we go forward.
And the way it works, well, I don't know, the way they work, the way it works, it's like a rolling 5-year thing. So if you got convicted of something today, it would start your 5-year time period from ticking. So you'd have to wait 5 years and 1 day essentially to be able to carry it.
They would prohibit you from long term. How can a lawful person carry a handgun under 1927? Allows both open and concealed carry without license. If any part of the handgun is visible, it must be in a holster. The part that gets me is it reveals the requirement that the holster be a belt or shoulder holster. That means it can be a boot holster, pocket holster, any number of different ways to carry a weapon that most people probably wouldn't even see. But if any part of the gun becomes visible, it's got to be in a holster. So you're not. Hopefully, we're not going to have a lot of people carry guns around the waist.
Yeah. So, so one thing, when I've talked to a lot of clients, a lot of people in the business, a lot of these ideas around, well, look, I know there's all this stuff. Everyone's trying to figure it out. What has changed for me as an owner manager? What's changed for me? Okay. And that's a great question. So I think what I'm going to try and do as we go along, and without cutting it off, is try and point out, like, compare and contrast, like, well, look, this new law is this, but does that really mean anything for you? And so this slide, talking about the holsters, this isn't really any different than we had previously, except for one thing, the very last bullet point here, which is previously, if you wanted to carry open, you had to have a holster here or here, right? But now, as Charles said, it's holster anywhere. So, and I'm doing this because I'm trying to alleviate anxiety, alleviate confusion. Not a lot has changed. It's not a big distinction for this law as far as you guys are all concerned. Sorry.
No, that's perfect. So we'll do that. What places are prohibited under 1927? If you're on someone else's property, their property, their rules. So if you're on somebody's property and they say, hey, I want you to carry a gun, you can't carry a gun. Simple as that. Private businesses can prohibit unlicensed carry by giving notice under Penal Code 3005, which is criminal trespass, or a traditional gun buster, which is a change, sign. The penalty is a Class C misdemeanor and the maximum is $200 fine if the individual leaves immediately when told. So there is still a possibility that it can be fined if there is a citation. The citation don't is.
What's a gun busters?
It's the Ghostbusters with the ghost. And I'll show you.
Yeah.
So in addition to you don't have, so now you don't have to have a 305, the big
No,
one.
we're gonna get to that.
We'll get to that. Yeah.
We're probably doing that with 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's all
Whoever the BOMA,
this is where you want to be.
the affiliate members who are sign companies should be the ones sponsoring this record. They'll be doing a dinner at Capitol Grill or something. Get it.
All right. Maintains the currently prohibited places for persons without a LTC or license to carry, includes schools, public places, courts, or offices utilized by the court, racetracks, airports, past security. So you can go to the airport with a gun as long as you don't pass security. Bars, sporting events, correctional facilities, hospitals, nursing homes, mental hospitals, amusement parks, and governmental open meetings. It prohibits the unlicensed carry in a public place while intoxicated. That's a good thing. Can carry on federal property is still restricted by federal law. It is a federal felony to carry onto post office property or military installation.
So the big takeaway, that's a lot of stuff. It's all the same.
Nothing's really.
That has not changed. So as far as the places that were previously prohibited, they're all still prohibited. I think there was the only wrinkle there was the airport. So yeah. So now at DFW or Love Field, you can, for example, go into the bag claim, right? And or go to the ticket counter, but you can't go to
The idea was they had so many people that come into the airport and have guns in their bag, they're all there. They're giving them an ounce.
Yeah.
They're giving them an ounce, all they do. And if you forget, you got a gun in your bag, it's easy to do if you're traveling. You're not gonna go to jail, you're not gonna be tied up in court for that. All right, what signs can prohibit carry of handguns? This is the good part.
Here you go.
Any prohibited places listed in Penal Code 4603 may post a newly defined sign to give clear notice that the location is prohibited. However, the sign is not required to make this place off limits. My thing is, what we've got to catch here is that any prohibited places listed, my attorney taught me a long time ago that verbiage means a lot. If you're not listed in a prohibited place, this is not going to work in your favor.
Yeah. Yep, that is 100% correct. Yep. And this is what's causing a lot of the confusion and consternation.
And the 4603 prohibited weapons are prohibited. And by statute.
Yeah.
All right. A church or private business, this is where we come in, may prohibit unlicensed carry of a handgun under Penal Code 3005. That's a criminal trespass law. Notice can be a specific sign, similar to the 30-06 sign, and I'll show you a sample of that, or any other sign reasonably likely to come to the attention of an intruder, or any other written or verbal notice that warns individuals they are prohibited from entering the property with the file. Again, there's not really a whole lot of change in there, other than the fact that they're going to let you do some different signage.
Yeah.
But this signage is only going to apply to unlicensed carry. So keep that in mind. A church or business may allow concealed carry while prohibited open carry. A lot of churches have security details, and they're going to come up, they want to make sure Schaefer's the one that did the Texas church bill that we talked, we went back and forth on, and he's very pro-gun in the church. As long as they're trained, I'm okay with it. House Bill 1927 repeals the TABC sign that prohibits unlicensed carry at a location that sell alcohol for consumption off premises, on premises such as grocery stores and gas stations. Means if you stop off at 7-Eleven and carry a gun, you get your beer. And as long as it's not, if you're not on property, that consume alcohol, 51% rule kicks in,
Yep.
then you should be okay with that. Notice under 30.6, 30.7 will continue to restrict handgun license to carry holders, LTC, from carrying, but notice under 30.5 does not restrict the person with a license to carry. That the criminal trespass sign will not affect somebody with a. So you still are required to do the 30.6.
This two things. This first bullet point, this is going to be the source of a lot of confusion because a lot of people don't stop to think if they see alcohol, they don't stop to think about like a restaurant bar versus like a 7-Eleven or a Tom Tom. They're not thinking. They just think, oh, it's okay to bring my weapon in. And so this is going to cause a lot of issues. So if you are running, retail with restaurants, whatever, I mean, it's probably not going to really be an issue for you guys, the park managers, but for the proprietors, this is going to be a big headache.
I know there's some buildings with shops in the building that sell alcohol. That's gonna affect you. You need to know so that you can educate your tenant on that.
The law is there no longer a license to carry?
There is still
There's still a license.
You do not have to have a license. What they've done is they go, okay, if you want to carry a weapon and you don't want a license, you don't have to. What the handgun license allows you to do, there's about 34, I believe, other states that have reciprocity with Texas, which will allow you to carry a handgun in their state if you have a license. Unlike Texas, who said, come on, you can carry a gun. Some states say, well, you can carry a gun from Texas as long as you have a license.
Just a point on that, but a lot of those 34 states are now also passing constitutional carry. So one of the things that Texas did was, it used to be that if you had a license in another state, it was reciprocity. Now constitutional carry, you can come in from another state, and a lot of the other states that are doing that are also doing it. So you can pretty much get, I think it's 20 states now, 21, something like that.
So to put it out there, that's a great point. So to put this all in perspective, there are 20 states. Texas will be the 20th state, I believe, to have constitutional carry. Some states, like I think Vermont, never had any laws on it ever. So by definition, they were always constitutional carry because they never say anything about it. The big hubbub is that Texas is the most populous state to actually go constitutional carry. But as George just pointed out, there's a lot of movement afoot to do it in other states. And
some states allow you to carry young 16. But
yeah.
So 16, 18-year-old carry guns.
Yeah.
Where I was moved there.
Yeah.
Well, the cheapest states like Alaska with its bears.
Okay.
They have reason, which is understandable, they have a little bit of reason to do.
The bears carry guns.
All right, if a property owner or someone with apparent authority provides notice that carrying a firearm in the location is prohibited, the person, licensed or unlicensed, must immediately depart or face the heightened penalty. That means anybody, you put in position, your security officer, you go to somebody and say, excuse me, sir, ma'am, we do not allow weapons in the building. You can do it by giving them a flyer. Remember in there, they said, any other way that we tell them that we don't allow weapons, you can do it. And some places go as far as getting out a little card that says, our policy, there's no weapons allowed on property. We ask you to remove it, secure it in another location. That's it. If they get that notice and they refuse to leave, then it's a higher penalty.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. And
So exactly what signs do we, 30.6, 30.7, do we have to have this?
So let me, we're gonna come on.
I'm sorry.
That's good to find out.
no. So
We knew that. That's not coming out from this.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I just want to know what signs I need, that's all I want to know.
it's a crescendo effect, yeah.
Sorry.
No, no,
Charles, it still has to be in English and Spanish.
Hey, English and
yeah.
Spanish.
No, this is.
When you walk up to somebody, you give them notice, I guarantee you, there's none of these folks that are very pro constitutional carry is going to challenge. it. Just like on 30/6, 30/7, or everything else. When you put signage up, if you elect to put signage up, you are going to go on the website and say, these people are posting signs. They're not legal, they're improper, they talk. And just like with the Disability Act, there's folks that go around, to see if I can get a lawsuit out of this. So you gotta know what you're doing.
When you provide notice, you no longer have to provide the notice in writing.
It could be verbal.
Yeah.
It could
You
be,
just read it off.
the sign at the door, if you think it, a reasonable person sees.
You could have, and just to be clear, in the current law, pre-constitutional carry, from now to August 31st, you don't necessarily have to give a written card, you can just do a verbal, but the issue is evidentiary, did you actually say it? And then if you don't speak Spanish, then
How
you have to have that,
they're
yeah.
actually receiving it.
Yeah. I always told clients, I said, look, have the cards, but you should do both, but don't not just do verbal.
You don't just walk and say, here, read this.
Yeah,
You got to turn your staff and say, here, sir, ma'am, we have this policy in place, this is information on it, if you have questions, you contact them by phone. Because I tell you want them off the property. That's actually. And you want to do it without escalating into a confrontation or, on channel 4.
And a lot of times the written, giving them a written notice kind of diffuses the situation
Yeah.
a little bit. and it becomes
Give them provide them
non-verbal.
information.
But probably the only reason that you're gonna give them notice is if you see them with a holster or
That's
button or whatever. Otherwise, security officer, somebody from management, isn't gonna just walk back and be like, okay, Sarah, I'm telling you, you can't. That's
Yeah.
just.
So if I could digress for a second. So in the past few years, when someone had open carry, did anyone have any instance of people openly carrying that they know of?
Yeah, a lot of folks scared that they had got that to be okay for that. Most people, when you go back and do research on license carry holders, I think out of all the crimes that committed statistics, less than 1% provide concealed carry on.
Yeah.
So, again, the criminals that we're dealing with are already criminals, they're gonna carry guns, they're already gonna do that. What we're trying to do is, if they're law-abiding citizens following the law, we want to protect their rights, but we also want to protect our property. So that's all we're trying to do, is balance it out where we have some control, so they can do what they need to do and how they wish to do, but we're gonna maintain control on that.
I remember before they passed open carry, I've done a lot of research in other states that have open carry, and most of the commentary, most of the statistics were like, no one's really open carrying because people that are in the know about weapons, they know that if there is a active shooter scenario, if they are openly carrying, you might as well put the target in the back because the shooter is going to go after the person with the firearm. And so I wasn't expecting to hear a lot more people openly carry, but
And it's very few, you see, if you're not in the grocery store, you see a guy roll up with a pistol or something. Like, really, the people looking like, what's that for you? Because most people, if they're still carry, they don't want you to know, they're just trying to do something. So they're trying not to make a spectacle because that causes problems for them. These are some of the signs that everybody was asking about. This is the 30/6 sign, 30/5, I'm sorry. It talks about field code and criminal trespass. And those Spanish and English, that will now work for unlicensed carry. It can prohibit that. Actually, that does not affect carry over, correct?
Right.
Notice that then here's your gun buster sign, a couple of different options there. You go that way too. It opens it up a little bit to options. But the thing is, what you want to do is make it. If you put this sign up, it's got to be in 1-inch block letter and a conflicting color, and it's got to be in both Spanish and English. So it'll go right next to your 30/6, 30/7.
just so the same rules for the 30.6, 30.7 signs apply. Same business.
So it has to be at
Every single entrance.
Well, so that's a good question. So, hold on a second. So the question was, it has to be at every entrance to the building. So Charles just said it has to be conspicuous. Okay, and that means conspicuous in like this door, right? This is an entrance to the building. So if we wanted to place signs there, it would have to be conspicuous by this door. So we would, you would have to figure out how do we do that. So conspicuous also means not just with respect to each door, but entry points. And so what I tell clients, and I've actually walked properties before to help managers figure out where we should put these signs. What is conspicuous with respect to your specific building as far as people coming onto the property? So like, do you have to do it on every single door? Well, no, but you run the risk of somebody walking in off this, like if one of you guys came in off that street and there's no sign there, they say, well, I didn't see that sign. So from a legal perspective, if there's no sign there, then it's not going to do you good.
If they're not violations, then you make them aware that
Yeah.
the policy is what. At that point, they must leave the property.
But from a practical standpoint, and this is not legal advice, I'm telling you what I've seen in practice, a lot of people will make the business judgment decision about only putting them in certain locations. I'm not telling you should do that. I'm just saying that's people weigh the pros and cons of putting all these signs up everywhere. In a building like this, where you've got multiple, go ahead. Oh,
They didn't.
No, there's not. I would, I was reading in one of the other states, I can't remember which one, but there's, so this is not determinative of Texas, but just it's guidance for us. The other states saying that these other gun buster signs need to also be conspicuous. So I would for example, if you're gonna hang this sign up, for like that size, how big that thing is, I wouldn't have this gun buster sign be like this big. I would have it be like as conspicuous as your other signs. Does that make sense? You could probably make it a little smaller, only because it stands out so much. And the contrast in colors, but I would make it as conspicuous as you can. And this is one of the things where the legislature didn't do us any favors, because they go into all this detail about the font. I mean, they're talking about font for this, right? For this, they don't name. So it's not very helpful.
So is the gunbuster in lieu of the other sign, or?
It
can be.
What they're giving you the option of
Is it
doing,
applied?
you can do this and nothing else other than the clear out, or you can put one of these or something similar in its place.
Then does that mean all three, like, no guns, or I mean, is it just say, there's
It's
no
got to be
specific?
30 out 6, 30 out 7, and this.
Yeah.
So you're looking at
Well-
minimum was what? 5?
Yeah, assuming you want, so,
Because there's now three, there's unlicensed.
yeah,
Concealed, no guns, period. So what is those signs apply to?
Unlicensed here.
so if you,
Okay.
yeah, it's so confusing. If you want, to prohibit somebody from carrying,
If you want to prevent somebody who's unlicensed from carrying a weapon, these will do it.
Okay.
If you want to carry somebody who's licensed from carrying on property concealed, 30 out 6.
Okay.
You don't want them to carry on the property open carry, 30 out 7. So you can weigh it out and say, I want to just limit it to where I have concealed carry license holders to only have a weapon in my building, or address each one individually, or you can say, I want all of them.
So I mean, I'm not going to keep it, I think for the most part, a lot of times when you say, I'm not going to change how I felt about license carry. So I'm not going to change my current signage. I mean, this is not advice. I'm just saying, this is the feedback I'm getting. So look, that field has been plowed. I don't want to even bring that up again. But now we're just going to address this. So, I mean, choose your own adventure.
Wait, I'm halted, George. So if you have 30 out 6 and 30 out 7 already posted, a licensed person cannot come in your building.
Yeah.
But unlicensed person is free to walk into your building right now. So you have to have at least a little gun buster sign in addition to 30-6.
You would think that they would have come up with a universal sign for all of them, right?
So, that would be.
And she also had a question.
Just a quick one. So in regards to 30.5, I just need I could use the verbal, the written, the wording.
Correct.
Or the, but not both, right? So, no, I don't. Sign up with the no guns allowed, and that's okay? That's safe as possible, is the top one. Okay.
But you still, if you have somebody carry weapons and sign that, you still want to get something safe. We have a policy, this is whatever's on our property, you know.
Well, it sounds like we're going to do that. Yeah.
But it's gonna allow you, you've got to do everything you want, everything, but it will allow you to say, okay, well, I'm just gonna worry about license carry. Because everybody's talking about training. First of all, for a license to carry, the state legislature took out training from that year. There's no continuing training, there's nothing on that. So the license carry holder goes to class, gets his license or her license, and they never have to go through the class. So DPS now has been passed with, you're going to put an online free firearm safety course out there for the unlicensed carriers. That's all the requirements. That's the only training requirement we put in.
But it's not mandatory. You don't have to.
You don't have to take it, they have to make it available. Okay, she had a question.
So I was just.
Okay.
That if we just want to ban the unlicensed, we can go with just one.
Yeah.
So is there any discussion about just only using like a gun buster for all of it at this point?
That's in debate. Talked about that. We're trying, Crystal, we're trying to figure out how we can do that because, but I do not think that with the reason for the license carry, I don't think they're gonna go that.
Yeah,
I think they're gonna go, you have to do either or.
Yeah, that's the problem is that the gun buster doesn't, if you're wanting to prohibit licensed or unlicensed, then the gun buster, the language is not clear in the statute, but I could not advise somebody to just go with gun buster if you wanted to prohibit everything, because it's just not clear, so you have.
Well, it does, it states in there that 30-6, 30-7, or licensed carry holders are not prohibited.
Right, from doing that.
It says in the statute.
In the license to carry class, they teach you that the gun buster is not a valid legal remedy to stop you from entering.
Yeah.
So in order to switch that, I think they'd have to switch the class, and then there's people that never have to go back. So those people are gonna go, I took the class 15 years ago and they told me it didn't matter. So I don't see them going to just the gun buster to prohibit license carry.
Especially since the other states are party to this, with the carry. All right, they talk about signage for the 4603, which is the handguns or weapons prohibited. Any person may provide notice that firearms and other weapons are prohibited under section 4603 on the premises or other property is applicable by the posting and sign at each entrance to the premises or other property that includes language that is identical or substantially similar to the following. Pursuant to 4603, penal code places weapons prohibited. A person may not carry a firearm or other weapons on this property. Remember, this is only if you're listed in 4603 as a prohibited place. So while ideally this would be great for us to be able to say, you just can't carry a weapon, they won't let us use that route. Unless you're on that list of prohibited places.
So if you manage a building that's not government owned, but you have government entities inside of it, like Secret Service, is that considered a prohibited building? No,
Just their
that's
space,
just
yeah.
space. Okay.
Yeah. It's great. It's a good question.
I mean, we were doing 30-7, I think we had one one of our real estate property managers said, remember that one of their tenants had in their lease that they could not prohibit very much.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this can get real deep, and that's something y'all need to think about when you get ready to put these policies in place is, who are my tenants? What are their leases say? Did somebody get by with that? Because if that manager wanted to post signage, and we're like, you can't.
Yeah.
You can't have in your lease saying that that you won't do it, and then ban it. Well, we just want it for everybody else. No, you can't do that. It affects everybody. Any other questions?
Can a signage be like that, or does it have to be something to do with this?
That's a Tony question.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Can a signage be something like that? Somehow metal,
Oh,
or does it have to be something?
no, it's a good question. No, I was like, what's, no, it's not before you. As long as it's conspicuous.
It needs the wood is blocked.
Yeah, the contrasting. So actually, this would actually, yeah. This would be close. I don't know if it's one, I'm guessing it's one. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you can get creative on it.
Yeah.
And but what we want you to do is go back, talk to your legal counsel,
Can we forego like the building signs altogether and just hand out the information on it, regarding somebody who has inspection?
Yes, yeah, the answer is yes. The only downside of that is if you don't approach somebody and hand it on.
One of the things that we talked about for open carry facility was the fact that most people shouldn't know they have a weapon. So our point was address the issue that they're apparent. So if you have somebody come in and they're obviously wearing a weapon, that's when you would address them and say, excuse me, we don't allow weapons in the building. And that was perfectly.
One of the other downsides to that is if somebody walks in the building and the sign is not posted, they are not violating the law until you provide the notice.
Yep.
So if they walk past your door, they see the sign, now they're supposed to get a citation and a fine. If you don't give them the notice until they walk up, if they haven't done anything wrong, they're going to turn around and leave.
Say we have a sign like that and everybody has to go past the security desk, doesn't matter how many entrances they'll funnel through the elevator, wouldn't something like that work instead of having to do every door?
Yeah. Look, I mean, it's a good point. It's a really good point because you typically focus on doors, but if you've got like a common, no matter how many doors you have, if you have a common entrance, then yeah.
As far as the cars are concerned, do we have separate cars for those who are licensed to do it versus the ones who are not? So it's who's got that.
That's gonna take a revision of the card, because I think, because you've got to be able to.
Oh, you can't start like putting all the notices in one card, like this.
So, right now.
Yeah.
Assuming there's a party. Get out.
Right.
Or-
There we go. Yeah.
Okay, so do we have to have a separate card for the one? So are we needing two separate cards out, or is just one card for each or?
But you do
Well, I think the one card might work as long as because you're still gonna verbalize the fact.
Yeah.
That's gonna affect your license carry, but by verbalizing the fact that weapons are not allowed on property, that will be an all-encompassing for everybody.
But yeah, but you could do what, but I don't recall anything in the act that says it has to be a separate card if you only want to prohibit,
You
like.
just have to make them aware.
Yeah. That's a good question.
That's an answer.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you could put all three notices on one card. Yeah.
In Spanish and English.
Yeah. Because what I've seen before is that like the English on one side, Spanish on the other, so you pop, yeah. That would be a lot more convenient than having two. Yeah.
So I know when concealed carry was passed, everybody was like, does any liability fall on the management company or the ownership? Did we have a piece where that occurred with open carry, and does that apply now? Like, is there any liability for us?
So liability specifically for like a.
For instance, if we don't post the signs and something happens.
So that's an awesome question. this is why I love this stuff. So, to answer that, I kind of have to go off on a tangent, is that, okay.
We got 16 minutes.
Okay, so look, this is a great question, and her question is, okay, what about liability? Let's say we do nothing, or let's say we do something and the property manager blows it or whatever. And somebody gets shot, either intentionally or accidentally. Okay, so let's talk about intentional, because that's probably what scares people the most. Active shooter scenario, right? So forget signs, forget the law, forget this constitutional character, just forget all that jazz for a second. It goes down to the very basic concept of premises liability, and what are you liable for from a premises liability standpoint? And typically speaking, in the state of Texas, a criminal act that happens on the premises, you're only liable for it if you had reason to believe that it could happen, if it was foreseeable. Okay, and the example I've used a million times, if you've heard before, I apologize, I'm going to use it again. Many years ago, North Park Mall, there was a gang that was targeting North Park Mall. They were assaulting people in the parking lot. Okay, it happened once, it happened twice, and okay, about the third or fourth time, this is all within the span of like several days, it was all over the news. So like, yeah, the 5 o'clock news, all 3 major stations were down North Park Mall with their local beat reporter there reporting about how this gang is targeting North Park. All right. So the first couple incidents, it was not foreseeable that a gang is going to target it. By the time the news shows up and is reporting that a gang is targeting it, now it's foreseeable. So now, then North Park, I remember going because I'm such a nerd. I remember like literally driving to North Park at like midnight on a Tuesday, just seeing the security because they were everywhere. I had nothing else to do. And there were guards everywhere. There were cops everywhere, police officers everywhere. And so why? Because they knew it was foreseeable. And so they probably had a lawyer say, hey guys, this is foreseeable. If something happens now, tell us. So, okay, so let's bring this back to our situation. Is it foreseeable that someone is going to break in and start shooting the place up? Probably not. Okay, let's change the fact. Let's say that you get a warning from somebody, the law enforcement, that, hey, there is a potential threat for something and it's targeting your building. Okay, well, maybe that heightens your awareness for that specific target, right? But absent anything that gives you reason to think it could be foreseeable, you're not going to be liable. Let's say that, yes, sir.
The one we see a lot is a domestic dispute with a tenant.
Yeah.
And the tenant then informs the property manager that, hey, this person, we found out from the HR manager, we had that happen a lot. We end up putting on people either in their suite or in the lobby.
So,
it happens all the time.
But is the tenant responsible for that, or
Well,
who's responsible?
so where I was going with this is that is one of the common things that come up where we have law enforcement say, and this isn't necessarily active shooter, but like where they'll say, hey, there are people that are breaking in and assaulting. It's happened across the street, happened over there. It could happen in your building. That's a situation that should have your antennas raised. When a tenant calls the property manager and says, hey, we have someone who is threatening violence. I know they've got a history. They mentioned a couple things about coming and hurting somebody in our workplace. Okay, now you're on notice, and that's probably the worst case scenario for you to be in from a property management standpoint. Okay, because now someone's told you that happened. So when that happens, there's 3 calls you should make. Okay, one is to law enforcement, put them on alert. One is to your security professional, and 3 is to your counsel. And I'm not trying to be funny, but those are things you need to do immediately, because that could be a potentially dangerous situation, not only from a liability standpoint, but from a human standpoint.
All right, just to clarify.
Yes.
In that scenario, if a tenant calls me and says, one of my people is getting divorced, and it's a contentious divorce, is that the same as saying there's a domestic dispute and the wife has got to come, she comes down there to shoot the husband? Is that the same?
It could be. It's all a lot of people get involved at the time. So if somebody calls and says, I'm not just guys, there's a case law out there about this. If somebody calls and says, hey, there's a domestic situation, we have a employee here who is very hostile. Okay, so then there's a serious question that should be asked. Is this person running a community at the workforce? Is this person coming into the building, whatever? So, but if it's just a general comment about someone who's acting radically, it's probably not going to give rise to liability. But once you're talking about, hey, this person is threatening to harm somebody, or they say, I'm concerned that this person, they have a proclivity or they have a tendency to make threats, and they haven't made threats now, but they could, I'm concerned that they could come on property. That's what is really, actually, anything in this realm should raise your intent. And that needs to be triaged right away. But the liability, so in other words, someone calls you and says there's domestic violence issue, and it could potentially involve the workplace, that's just yeah. And so at that point, I wouldn't make a judgment call about whether or not there could be liability. I think I would still do the alerts like I talked about. With 3 calls, I would do 3 calls. Yeah, calls move along with it. If you have a GPS around that area, contact person, yeah, call right away. Call your security people right away. And call your council right away. Those are 3 calls I would make with the project, and in that order.
Because that shows, at least show that.
Yeah.
Because when you end up in a most liability, you have to somewhere, a slip and fall risk or dark area, is when you fail to take action, when the liability starts.
Yeah, so you get the call from the tenant, you get the email from the tenant. The first, if you go on record immediately, so this is a hybrid discussion of safety and legal risk, right? From a legal risk perspective, if you go on record of reaching out to security personnel and law enforcement immediately, that's a very good way to protect yourself from the legal perspective, regardless of what goes down.
All right, last.
Yes, sir.
Posting 30.5, 30.6, 30.7, is that acknowledging that there's a foreseeable risk?
It's a great question, and no. It has to be foreseeable and somebody has to see like that good right in that harm. So the posting of signs is no. Yeah. So another question, by not posting the sign, are you opening yourself up to liability? That argument has been made several times around the country, and it's very difficult to get to prove that if you had that sign, the active shooter would not have happened. It's a hard, just from an evidentiary standpoint, it's very difficult to prove that negative. Like if you had that sign, the active shooter would not have showed up. It's a hard case to make. Or that they'll pay attention. Yeah. So I can't tell you what's due on that, but I'm just telling you, it would be very difficult for a plaintiff to make that claim. And they can bring it, but it's hard to get. Yeah.
Do we think that, when we did this whole exercise with the open carry, it ultimately has much to do about nothing. Nothing really came of it. Do you guys anticipate that kind of same thing happening with this new law?
20 states have started to do it. Texas is the last one to be doing it. I mean, they're the latest one to be doing it. County Michigan State had no law ever on file. We do not foresee, I do not foresee an increase in criminal activity due to the fact that we're very well. Do I foresee possible increase in accidents, discharges and stuff like that? Absolutely. Because, a lot more, if you watch the news, a lot more people there are buying weapons than ever before. Any kind of firearms, people are buying guns. We hope they're getting training. But that's where my concern is at, more on the accident. I think this is more at home than car. I hope not.
I just, I don't have any years back up, only from what I've seen in other states, we've changed the laws. But we saw no incremental issues when we did open care. I know it was a headache, and so there's a lot of static, a lot of noise about it with you guys and the owners, that I get, but from a day-to-day, no. I think in this instance, I don't think there's gonna be a big risk of criminal activity, because they actually don't.
The criminals that are gonna, that have the proficiency to carry a weapon are already carrying guns. They don't care about it.
Okay.
What they're saying here is now law-abiding citizens are able to, as long as they're not in the prohibited group, are able to carry a firearm. They've done that already in the past by doing capital doctrine, you've heard of that, where they've extended it to your car. So people have been carrying weapons for a long time. They're just now clarifying and making it, and putting it on the books as, hey, this is how we Texas wants to proceed.
Yeah.
Okay, I will kind of turn this around a little bit, keep it in a different direction. One, this is really for security. What training are the security officers getting about this? And then two, are they going to be allowed, I mean, is there any situation with the security contract where your employees cannot use our properties?
I have yet to have a client come to me and say, hey, I want specified training on this, or on how we want it, other than their policy. We'll enforce the policy unless it puts us in undue risk for the officer or in liability status where you're maybe going to violate somebody's rights. We're going to tell you real quick, hey, we're not doing that because X, Y, Z, you know. But this is not, we don't foresee this as being outside our scope of being able to approach somebody and going, hey, our policy is this. Because again, we're not expecting this to be a true criminal element as much as we are a licensed carry or an unlicensed carrier that's just meeting constitutional law. So we don't foresee that. And we're going to be able to work with each of our clients. And I think every security vendor will tell you the same thing, that we work within what your scope is, what you need us to do. Until you ask me to do something, like I had a residential community one time that said, hey, we want to put tar and glass on the top of our wall because we got all these high schoolers climbing the fence. I'm like, that's not legal. I can't. We're not going to do that. Or the one that said, hey, we got all these folks in from Louisiana who were displaced through the hurricane, and we want you to put certain restrictions on those folks, but not on the other residents of the property. We're like, nope. We're gonna tell you that. We're gonna try to keep you from getting in a position where you get in trouble. But we're willing to, every other agency is going to be willing to work with you and work within the rules that you want to set forth on these policies.
Can I ask one question real quick? It has nothing to do with like property management. I just want clarification on the law. So I keep hearing that there's no more background checks, but everything I read said you still require a background check. Can you clarify?
Purchasing a firearm in the US.
You still have to have a
you
background check.
should have- that is
Okay,
a
because I
background.
keep seeing everybody and every lot of people keep saying, so I just wanted to.
Yeah,
Well, what they're not
The state-
requiring is person-to-person background check.
Yes.
So if I sell a gun to Tony, there may not be a
But
background
that was
check.
always.
That's always been the way.
And so that didn't change.
Nothing's
So
changed.
I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah,
because a lot of
nothing
people
has
are all
changed.
concerned that you can just go out willy-nilly and buy a gun and not have anything.
I think where that comes into play is if you have an LTC, it's the same as it's always been. There is no background
Background
check.
check.
You've already had the background check.
You've already
They've already
had it to
vetted
get
you.
an
as long as-
LTC, yeah. But I'm just saying there were a lot of people that were concerned thinking that there was no background.
Yeah, in Texas, it's always been, if you buy a gun from an individual, there's not a background check. I think there is political moves being put in place. I think that's what you're hearing a lot of, is that they want now for individuals to have to go through a background check to buy from another individual. So that's legislation that's, they're fighting that.
Just real quick, on the liability side, if something like this were to happen, your first line of defense should be your security company. So a little plug for the security industry. Tony will tell you, your security contract, there should be a clause in there that indemnifies you as the property owner, the property management company from anything security related. So if an incident does happen, your security company, and this is one of the issues we deal with all the time, we don't just provide people to your building, we're also there on the liability side, spend a lot of time. And we spend a lot of time being educated and knowledgeable on this. Last year, Kroger paid out close to $90 million for a liability settlement in Atlanta. Atlanta's not Texas, but these things are coming. You're gonna see it. So the other thing is to make sure that your insurance, or your security company should be carrying 30 plus, maybe $50 million plus umbrella on their insurance. If they're not, they don't have adequate coverage in your building. I mean, you're looking at, most of these assets are $100 million plus. If there's an incident, you're looking at $100 million in losses at the very least.
That's true.
So what about if somebody like accidentally or unintentionally shoots themselves or shoots somebody else? What is that related to property?
It's good question. From a conceptual legal standpoint, it's no different. If it's non-criminal issue, it's very, very similar to a discussion we would have had if there were a landfill. Did you know about the landfill? Nothing about the landfill? Same. Or if it has a defense space. But it happens when someone in the four corners of the defense space, that it's really a defense space. The other question is, right, it's common there. If someone's walking through this building from the garage to the elevator lobby, whatever, and they drop the gun and it goes off and they shoot somebody, that's a landlord, right? But the question is, what do we do? Do we know that that's adopted? Yeah. Now, the question is, well, what do you do on signs? Yeah. Again, it's going to be very difficult to prove that if you had that sign, you that person not have dropped that gun. Yes.
So if I'm a property management company and I don't have a outside security company, but my security company is the same as my property management, like we hire somebody to work for us as security, what is the liability there? Do they have to have, hopefully they've got all the licenses and insurance.
That's the few regulated security issues where the licensing part of the mess up. Safety part of that too, though. Same guy. But you definitely gonna get into this now, and find out where you're at on that. What they do is business is direct impact from you. Of course, we carry liability and identify. That's different when they're your employee.
This is, so like, I'm looking at park management right now in California that's moving into Texas, they're expanding in Texas. They do their own security, I'm sorry, but they need to bifurcate and have a separate entity for the security company because so they can shift liability away from that. And that's probably that's a really good question to go into, not just in the context of this, but just overall. Yeah, because they don't have that coverage.
Well, I'm going to you already have some. And I'm going to take care of it. They can carry class B line. So that's how they've done it. I thought I recognized it, that's not.
Yeah.
Didn't mean to call you out on that, it was easy.
It was completely off topic, but while we're on the subject of guns, anyone know where you get ammo
Tony, Charlie, can we just get one more question from Janet?
I'm sorry, Janet.
Question, so we mostly have retail space. So if we put them at the entrances to the parking lot, can we do that? I mean, or is it just inside the building?
That's gonna be hard. Yeah, I'm trying to lay the land, like give me is like a strips.
Yeah.
Okay. Like when they drive in. That is good, but I've had situations come up where people don't see it because they're driving in and they're not focusing on the signage, they're focusing on not traffic. And then I've had situations where people will walk up and like walk right past it. And so there's always gonna be a question about whether or not it was conspicuously placed. There's always gonna be that question regardless of what you do,
Whether or not it
but,
covers the
But I
parking
think just
lot
like,
or
I
lot.
think,
yeah.
I think just like in
Yeah.
this, you don't know, your tenant can also put. I mean, if it's in your contract. or
Yeah.
lease, and of course, I think that won't be, but as long as it's, you have the ability to say, okay, if you want to enforce the gun law, you're the tenant needs to do that. But that's just like carrying, have them allow their employees to carry a weapon on in their space. Because there's companies that say, hey, we want to carry, you don't carry.
I'm just like, to cover the parking lot areas, so that's a huge liability area for us, because a lot happens.
in the parking lot. Yeah. You know, it's,
I think that would be hard.
yeah, it's hard to answer without really seeing the, I mean, I've actually done it for a while, I've watched traffic flows in the morning and stuff with park managers, and we've also gotten made like, you know, decision of how it's supposed to be. It's a hard question to answer that. But I would, you know.
Isn't that kind of a sticky situation with the castle doctrine?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I'm saying, because employers have a right to restrict weapons and all that from their employees, but there is statutes that say how far they can go with that.
Right.
And,
Yep.
and really what you don't, I understand the parking lot issue, because especially at a retail center. But if I'm shopping and I have a weapon on and I know that JCPenney's has a sign posted that I can't carry, so I'm not gonna carry my weapon. Where am I supposed to live? Are you providing office storage for it? Are you doing, I mean, you run into other avenues on what you're gonna do. If you tell them no, so there's a certain segment of society that'll say, you know, we're not gonna shop at the shop at all. And that impacts your tenants, it impacts your rent, which impacts, I mean, there is no right or wrong answer. We can't, I mean, this is a hard topic.
Somebody else?
We're at time, but if you want to take one more, does anybody have
Anybody
any
have
additional
anything else?
questions? I have.
Okay. Is this available?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. Can we put this on our?
Oh,
website?
yes, I'll email it to you.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
I mean, yours doesn't go on. I put yours on there, didn't it? I'm mechanically declined.
Like the story.
I'll send you, call me, I'll tell you Tony's contact information.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Charles.